All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
And welcome back to hour number 2 of tonight's edition of the X Zone, and we're coming to you from your hometown radio, Classic 1220, and streamed around the world on classic1220.ca. If you'd like to send me an email, the email address is xzone@classic1220.ca. My guest this hour is E.P. Grondine, or as we call him, Edmund Grondine, and we're going to be talking about man and impact in the Americas. And joining me now is Ed Grondine. Ed, how are you doing, my friend?
Oh, wonderful, Rob. Modern technology, and it's working. I got through to you here.
Ed, tell us a little bit about yourself. Yeah, Ed, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got involved into, the Americas, comet impacts, asteroid impacts, and so on.
Well, it was started off as a simple op-ed piece for a space newsletter. I went back to the historical records and realized that there had been multiple asteroid and comet impacts. I didn't know much about it at the time, but I put that in. I was just that nobody could believe it. That these things had hit. We're talking probably about 2000. The year 2000, so it's been a 20-year program. And then I went and did an exhaustive survey of man and impacts in the Americas for my book, and then I had a stroke.
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah. Well, hey, I'm above ground walking and talking and eating and good stuff like that, and there's a lot of folks that aren't.
That is so true. That is so true. So what has been the significance of the impact strikes in the Americas?
Well, everybody that was here, every native nation that was here, that survived them, remembered them, and they remembered where they were. So effectively, you can lock them onto the archaeological record from about 15,000, 17,000 years ago. You can lock them into the material cultures. It's a very powerful tool in that regard.
And what was their effect on the Americas? How did the Americas change? What happened to the life as it was evolving back then?
Well, there's no mammoth and mastodon. They're all gone, and all the megafauna died off through starvation. They couldn't get food because of the immediate climate collapse, and they just died. That's why you don't have any elephants in the Americas now. But a whole lot of folks died as well. I mean, it's very, very. When you go back and look at the arrowheads and spear points and stuff, there's a real drop off in arrowhead and spear point production, and the number of quarries used as well. So it just a whole lot of people died.
All right, but what was the archaeological or the historical findings that we have found that tell us more about what really happened than we thought we knew?
Well, generally Native American histories were dismissed as garbage and nonsense when I began my work. And particularly as they talked about anything falling from out of the sky, they were really dismissed as garbage and nonsense. And of course, that's all changed. Another thing is actually when I started off on this, NASA had nobody looking for anything headed our way. I mean, NASA their funding was effectively zero, And now, of course, it's sizable. And Amy Mainzer is out at in Tucson working on a sensor for the NeoCam. And once that goes up, then we're not going to have to worry about anything hitting us because we'll have plenty of warning.
Well, don't we have a system in place now that would give us warning that we have a near impact or a near collision on its way?
It's only good down to about 50 meters right now, I think is the number that's generally bandied about. And 150 meters wide can take out several states. So we really need to get the NeoCam up in orbit. It's a high priority. And it's been a real struggle to get the ground-based telescopes funded. And another funny thing along the way here is that the United States Space Reconnaissance telescopes were picking up these things all the time, and they were alarmed. And finally, they declassified all their data, and that just increased the demand for more small observatories, ground-based observatories, and that's the bulk of what we have right now: small ground-based observatories. And we need to get it down to 50 meters. We need the NeoCam up.
Mm-hmm.
And you're fighting for, I don't know, a launch. I guess I don't know what a launch cost runs now with SpaceX on the Falcons, or Falcon Heavy. I don't know which one they want to use. I'm not sure what orbit they want to put the NeoCam into, and I don't know what the mass is. But the point is that they know that it's a hazard now, and they're dealing with it slowly, and it's still a fight for money. I mean, there's always folks that'll come along with some scheme and want the money for their pet project.
But wouldn't it be more advantageous if NASA was to put up more than one telescope that would be used for searching the skies for these asteroids and these meteors that could be on their way to Earth, and have the satellites put into a geosynchronous orbit?
Well, the best system is actually a set of lunar-based telescopes, maybe in the radar range, not optical, or in the optical range, a whole set of them. And that would give us very early warning of even the small ones. And the small ones, again, can take out several states,
Mm-hmm.
as they have in the past. So, you really have to get the detection levels way up.
But if one of these were detected, what could we do about it?
Well, actually, if you can find it early enough, if you hit it out there, you don't have to use a nuclear charge. That's always a big bugaboo. Oh, you just want to nuke it. No, you can just take it and hit it with a sizable piece of metal far enough out, and all you have to do is nudge it like a quarter-inch way the hell out there, and you end up with missing the Earth by several Earth distances. So it's, and then of course, if it really comes down to it, you'd probably prefer to launch a nuclear charge out there to divert one if it was definitely going to hit the Earth. That's probably the way it would work. But it's early warning. The earlier warning we can get, the smaller, more conventional diversion technique we can use.
And what is the current deterrent value that we have?
None. I'm sure that there's. Well, actually, if you go to Los Alamos and you go into the cafeteria, there's probably some people working through the mechanics of this. If you go to Hampton Roads, there's probably some people working through the mechanics of the launch systems and all that, coming up with diversion schemes or, concepts. And I actually don't know where the European guys hang out in CNRS in Paris.
Shouldn't this be a multinational project instead of just one country?
Well, right now we have several different countries that are working on it, which is good, and there's limited coordination. They have their own networks of information exchange for tracking and the rest of that, and for warning. But I I don't know. That's sort of like the governmental structure of that is like beyond me at this point. I've had this major stroke,
Hmm.
and actually, the engineering under the UN tried to step in, but it didn't work very well. They're very slow and far behind it. And the individual nations, each individual nation has their own program, and there's some they do their coordination privately, but back channel, but we don't really have that organized effort. Like I say, probably, the optimal system, and probably actually as people become more aware of how bad the threat from asteroid and comet impacts is, they'll probably end up building observational instrument detectors on the moon,
Hmm.
and both radar and optical, the best telescopes you can get for this specific task. I think that's probably going to come up within the next 10 years.
Is it possible that we'll face a strike before the 10 years are up?
Well, actually, yeah. I mean, it is possible. You look at Chelyabinsk, that impact on Russia about, what was it, 5 years ago now?
Hmm.
When that thing came in, there were four nuclear reactors underneath of it. And if that thing had come in just a hair off, it would have, all those reactors probably would have gone up, or would have taken out that entire area of Russia.
And that would have caused one heck of a
Mess.
contaminated mess that would spread around the
Yeah,
world. Yeah.
yes, that's a technical term for it, a mess. Yeah, it would have been a contaminated wasteland, plus, you know, lots of dead people, lots of radiation, reactors melting down, like four Chernobyls. It's like,
Right.
oh boy. And that's the situation we're pretty much at globally when you look at the distribution of nuclear power plants.
Hmm. All right, Ed, stand by. You and I have to take our first break. Exxon Nation EP Grondine is our special guest this hour. We're talking about asteroid and comet impact and the effect that these impacts have had on the planet throughout recorded history. Wow. It boggles my imagination that here we are, we want to go to Mars, we want to go explore the universe, and yet
Yeah.
nobody's protecting
Well,
us. Ed, we have to go to a break, so please stand by. This is the X Zone. I am Rob McConnell, and we'll be back on the other side of this very short break as we continue on your hometown radio, Classic 1220, and streamed around the world on classic1220.ca. Don't go away. This is the X Zone. I'm Rob McConnell, coming to you from our broadcast center and studios in St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada, on your hometown radio, Classic 1220, and streaming on classic1220.ca. Our guest this hour is EP Grondine. We're talking about asteroid and comet impact. And you know, Ed, I find it ridiculous that instead of building an array that would protect the planet from asteroids and comets, that the space officials are more interested in going to Mars. Shouldn't the money be spent here on this planet, protecting this planet?
yeah, personally, that's my view. That's my own personal view. Mars is Mars, and it's a radioactive barren dust heap. But let me mention something else here. This is very important. They're putting all this money into sending men to Mars. We
Mm-hmm.
don't know that Mars doesn't have any life form that would be threatening to life on Earth, anything that could survive on Mars, and I think it's likely to be something there, could kill a phenomenal amount of people here on Earth. Uh, and you really have to make sure that there's nothing out there that's going to collapse agriculture, that they're not going to bring anything back that's going to destroy our ecosystem.
Well, wouldn't they have looked at that and taken all the precautions before they sent astronauts to Mars and then had them return?
No. No. You can go out and look at the probes they have scheduled, and they do biologically isolate the Mars sample returns, but I mean the amount of sample they get is really pretty small.
Wait a sec. Hold on here. How do they get samples back from Mars?
Well, they're caching them now. As these rovers go around, they're actually gathering samples, and then they'll send another rover up to put those samples in a return vehicle and then launch it from Mars.
Now, has this happened?
It's in the process of happening.
Oh, okay, so it hasn't happened yet.
They're gathering the samples and putting them aside for later retrieval.
Okay, so all right, let me just go back a few steps here because I'm getting confused. So we don't know anything about the Martian soil except what the craft on Mars has sent us back through the testing that they've done, right?
Right. Just their instruments take a look around.
Okay.
And their instruments aren't powerful enough to pick up any life form, if there is any life form. So it's not good. I mean, then there's a phenomenal amount of money spent on this on Mars compared to asteroid and comet, finding asteroids and comets before they hit. This phenomenal, man.
So, in your opinion, Ed, why do the space agencies want to go to Mars?
I think it's because of the illusions of an Earth-like Mars that come from the last century, back before we sent any probes there. I mean, if you go back to science fiction in the 1930s and 40s and 50s, they had Earth-like Mars. I mean, von Braun wrote about an Earth-like Mars. He had a big film out of Hollywood on that. So it's commonly believed out there by many people in our public that Mars is somehow like the Earth, and it's not.
Well, we already know that, so why would we be pursuing it if we know it's not like Earth? We know that from the telemetry and the data that is being sent back to us by the probes that they've already sent to Mars, that are on Mars and doing all this investigative research.
I think people fundamentally hope for a second chance. They're hoping that they can turn Mars into another Earth, despite the fact that it doesn't have a gravity, doesn't have a magnetic field to shield from radiation, little things like that. I mean, they just kite by it. It's Earth, Earth like Mars, Earth like Mars.
Mm-hmm. But if it doesn't have a gravity, okay, how are they?
Gravity.
Oh, well, you said it doesn't.
But the lack of gravity isn't the big problem. The big problem is that it lacks a magnetic field, so radiation just bathes the planet. And if you do get anything established in terms of a life form, that it will be killed by the radiation coming in. So you can't turn Mars into another Earth.
Well, I think anybody who would even contemplate turning Mars into another Earth certainly needs to give their head a shake and go seek some psychiatric help very fast, because that's impossible. Unless they do domes, and there's no domes on Earth that I'm aware of. Well,
oh, there's domes on Earth. They had a Biosphere 2 or something out in Arizona, I think, a few years back. I mean, and you got domes in Antarctica too.
Yeah, Ed, what I was getting at, we don't need domes on this planet to create an Earth lake.
Right.
Yeah.
You walk out the door and there it is.
Right.
Yep, it is. Well, I mean, you'd be amazed at the amount of money that's spent, on this, and the amount of time people spend on it. It's absolutely phenomenal. And compared to the amount spent on researching asteroid and comet impacts to
Mm-hmm.
determine the impact hazard. I mean, well, we have no money at all. It's entirely done out of pocket by different scattered geologists uh,
Well,
and historians. There's no central budget for retrieving memories or geological evidence of asteroid and comet impacts. So let me continue along this line. Right now, you got all these guys out. What we do get out there right now is all these guys going on and on and on about the younger Dryas this, younger Dryas that. Uh, they're self-proclaimed experts and trying to make every buck that they can. The point being that the younger Dryas is just a drainage. The actual impacts are marked by gamma ray production and carbon 14 spikes, and there's two of them. And my colleague Fletcher will. This caused a great deal of confusion. Like people were triangulating from two separate impact events to try and find a crater for one of the impacts. One of the impact craters is out there in Saskatchewan. My colleague Fletcher Wilson has this all laid out. He tracked it back.
mm-hmm.
Uh, we know and Canadian geologists are going to play a large role in this because both the impact sites are in Canada. So,
And I've got to ask you,
a,
I have to ask you, how did we get from talking about Mars to impact sites in Canada?
okay, let's see. We were talking about how I was talking about the amount of money they spend on Mars, on different Mars projects
Right.
versus the amount of money they spend on finding the next piece of junk from space before it hits us and kills a lot of people. It's that I think that was a transition. I'm not sure, but I do believe that was it.
Okay. So why is this geological information and data that you're seeking so important?
Well, it's when I say again, the impact hazard has been severely underrated. They still don't realize how often stuff from space hits the Earth and kills people. It's even, I did Man Impact the Americas. I never got to Man and Impact the Ancient Near East, and Man and Impact in Europe, which would have been more impact events.
So how many people would you say per year are killed by outer space debris or comet dust or any type of missile that enters the Earth's atmosphere that isn't disintegrated on its way down?
Well, the way it works is like there's no one, and then there's a whole lot of people. And to try and estimate, I want to say probably when they had the Holocene start impact events, which is a way I think about what they'll call the younger Dryas, the two of those, you're looking at 70% of the people living in North America dying in those two events. And small ones, it'll take out an area like a state, a couple or a province in size, and then of course people will come in from outside of there and re-inhabit the ecological niche. But all those people that were there were dead.
All right, but I thought you were talking about present time, that there are people being killed by debris from space.
No, it doesn't work that way. Occasionally we get dust flows from comets that pass by the Earth, and that'll cause global cooling. But there's nothing around that's going to do that I know of. And I'm pretty knowledgeable on it.
Yeah. So, but why the geological aspect? How can the geological data that that geologists are going for in these impact areas. How can that help us?
Well, actually, it just you just learn that what hit, where, and when, and that just helps you to build a better detection system to keep it from happening again.
How? How would that help?
Well, if you know the size of the impactor and what its composition was,
Mm-hmm.
that tells you what you need to look out for. Uh, I
So,
don't know. I'm thinking about it in terms of an auto wreck. It's kind of like if you cross the street, if you see somebody cross the street and
mhm.
they get run over, then was it a car? Was it a speeding car? Or was it a bus? Where did they get run over by? Where did it come from? And how fast was it moving? Little things like that. It's sort of the same way with impact events. You want to find out what hit, where it hit, when it hit, and it gives you a better handle on the problem, the hazard.
All right, stand by, Ed. You and I have to take another break. Exonation EP Grondine is with us. And we'll be back on the other side of this break as the X Zone continues with yours truly, Rob McConnell, from our broadcast center and studios in St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada. If you'd like to send me an email, my email address is very simple, xzone@classic1220.ca. We'll be back. Don't go away. That is, unless we get schmucked by an asteroid or a comet during this break. And welcome back. This is your hometown radio, Classic 1220, and we're streaming at classic1220.ca. Ed, what about the new race to the moon between the Chinese and the Americans? What can you tell us about that?
Well, I picked up. I was the first person to spot the renewed Chinese manned space program back in the '90s. I actually had an offer for a trip to visit there when they launched their first astronaut, but I was burying my mother at the time. Uh, so I've watched this for years. I mean, what's incredible is how far China has come. You look at the state of the economy over there now compared to even a few years ago, and it's phenomenal, and it's going to get more. Uh, what China's trying to do right now is catch up with Elon Musk, and they've announced their next launch vehicle, which is the Long March. I think it's a 10 is what they're calling it. It's their expendable. They're working on their expendable vehicle to get the cost down. And probably what they're going to do is send up, it'll probably be in the around the 90 to 100 ton class as a guess on things. So they're using much smaller rockets than the SpaceX Star, I don't know what the hell he's calling it now, but the current heavy launch vehicle from SpaceX is the fraction of that's a fraction of Artemis. They'll probably do it with 90 to 100 meter chunks with a reusable launch system, and that's my guess on the architecture. I mean, I haven't sat down and actually pulled out all the technicals on it, to actually nail it all down.
All right,
And
let me ask you a very simple question. Why is the U.S. and why is China? India's already been there, so why go to the moon?
well, in China, that's an easy one. China has a policy not to fall behind any other nation in any technology uh, further than like 20 years. And we went to the moon in 1969. So they're fundamentally like 40 years behind now, at least. And that just to be on the same, just to demonstrate the same, develop the same level of technology that we have in the West. And it's a good motivator. And they certainly are going to let the Americans go in there and claim it all. That's not going to happen.
So, is there any scientific reason for going back to the moon?
Well, you know, this is. Let me go back. I want to bring up something that most people don't think about, which is this: just like the Earth, the moon has gotten hit by asteroids for millennia,
Yeah.
and those asteroids have rare elements in them that are essential to our electronics and manufacturing today.
Hmm.
And so you'll find those deposits on the moon. That's like I think going to be end up being priority one for. Well, priority one's probably going to be the telescopes, both in the radio and optical, and then the next part will be uh, for the rare metals coming out. That's my guess on it, and I think that's just if you look at that, whoever gets hold of those rare metals is going to dominate technologically, dominate industrially in the next century. They're going to have all those rare elements from all those asteroids to gather.
So, who has jurisdiction on the moon? Who can claim it? How do they divide it up? Can the Americans go where the Chinese are? Can the Chinese go where the Americans are?
Well, I don't know how that's going to work out. I mean, right now it's first come, first serve, and that's pretty much the way it's going to run. That's my guess on it.
I believe that there's also vast deposits of helium-3 on the moon, and there are several applications for helium-3, as you're well aware. My question is, how do you get it back to Earth?
Well, same way you get there. Rockets. I mean,
yes, but
isn't
there a big difference in logistics when you're bringing back an entire rocket through the atmosphere compared to just the spacecraft, the capsule?
Well, you actually that's what they'll do is they'll use a rocket to launch a capsule that will probably use ablative reentry, to reenter the Earth's atmosphere. Well, I want to say if you look at SpaceX's Starship, they have the whole damn rocket. They slow it down and still has a heat shield on it. But I think for practical purposes, probably, and I haven't worked out the mechanics on that exactly, but I think for practical purposes, it's going to be ablative. They'll just mine rare elements, package them up, put them in a launch them off the moon, put them into a little capsule, ablative reentry back onto the Earth as a guess on things.
Okay, so they're spending all that money going to the moon just to bring back a little bit of material from asteroids and comets and meteors?
Well, actually, I think it's national prestige is what's driving it. Again, the Chinese want to show that they've reached the level of technology that we had in 1969. That's fundamental. And then the United States wants to show that it still has the level of technology that we had in 1969.
So it's ego.
So option.
It's ego.
Well, no, the rare earth elements are worth a whole lot of money. I mean, and if you can get them in concentrations, and I believe you can, then that's going to underlie the manufacturing sectors of both countries. And whoever has those will dominate manufacturing.
Yes, okay. It's nice that all this is going to be helping the manufacturers, but what about the people on this planet who are hungry, who are homeless, who are sick? Wouldn't the money be better spent on taking care of the people who could actually work in these manufacturing plants instead of just ignoring them?
Well, you do have. you do have to take care of the fundamentals here.
Mm-hmm.
And again, that's going to be competitive between the United States and China probably as well over the upcoming decades. But fundamentally, if you look at it like your electric cars, the next industrial revolution is dependent upon those rare earth elements, and so whoever gets a hold of them is going to be dominate the global economy.
But once again, what about the people?
Well, you can go to the hospital in an electric ambulance.
Oh, yeah, that's not going to help the family who can't make ends meet and who have kids to feed. It's not going to help the people who are sick. It's not going to help the people who are homeless. It's not going to help the people who are unemployed. Like, science is great, but I think that there are times when science does the largest discredit to humanity than people realize.
Yeah, if I don't know what the homeless and in Europe, pretty much medicine is socialized and taken care of. I don't know what their homeless problem is or the unemployment rate. I really have no idea.
It's high. So I would rather see money being spent on people than being spent on going to the moon and just putting more money in the pockets of the industrialists who really don't care about the people of this planet. Their only care is how much money they can put in their pockets.
Well, it's also dual use technology. I mean, the aerospace technology has use in military systems. Yeah, and that's probably not going to stop. My concentration is actually just finding the next piece of stuff before it hits the earth and kills a whole lot of people. And I'm confident that any money spent on that it returns a handsome reward and everybody benefits.
But you were saying there is no money for that.
Yeah, actually, in the overall budget, the amount that it gets is not enough. I mean, it has been an absolute battle. When I started off on this, NASA had nobody looking for anything from space headed our way. No, nothing. No, they had nothing. The extent of the effort was, I'm thinking Miss Shoemaker had a broke down telescope that they got some time on out in Colorado, and that was the extent of our detection systems.
Now, you're talking about a non-military entity like NASA, but what about the military aspects? Is there like this new space? What's it called? Space Force. Aren't they? Aren't they supposed to be looking for these as well? So is the military doing stuff that the public sector doesn't know about?
Well, generally, I mean, the military operates reconnaissance satellites in both the optical and radio frequencies. So, and we don't know much about them. But I would prefer to have this actually in the open sector, so there's a free exchange of information between all nations on the earth about what's headed our way. I don't want military involvement. And actually, I had a lot of folks were saying when I first brought up the hazard, a lot of folks said, "Oh, this should be the military. We should set up something separate from NASA." I'm going, "No, this is NASA's responsibility. Clearly, a NASA function. It's not DoD. It's not a terrestrial threat.
Sure it is a terrestrial threat. Sure it is.
Well, it isn't a hostile. It's not a hostile nation. It's
a hostile entity.
Pardon?
It's a hostile entity, a hostile object that is coming towards this planet, and it's up to the military to protect people. So I think it should be a military operation.
Well, I'll disagree with you, Rob. I mean, you actually want to be able to bring the entire planet's resources. We have to have coordination between the nations in stopping anything from hitting, and that you really need to have an open system. You can't cross it with your military programs where it's a weapon system.
All right, listen, you and I have to take our final break, so please stand by. Exonation Ed Grondine is our guest, and we're talking about asteroids, comet impact, archaeologists and geologists checking out sites of impact. Now we're talking about who should run the protection of planet Earth when it comes to comets or asteroids or other objects coming towards this planet. I think it should be the military. Ed thinks it should be the public sector of NASA. We'll come back and discuss this on the other side of this break as the X Zone continues with yours truly, Rob McConnell, from our broadcast center and studios in St. Catharines on Classics 1220.
Anybody here see the noise, see the fear and commotion? I think we missed it. Anybody here see?
Welcome back to Classic 1220, streaming around the world on classic1220.ca. I'm Rob McConnell. My email address is xzone@classic1220.ca. Ed, what about NORAD? Doesn't NORAD monitor things that are in orbit as well as those things coming into their jurisdiction?
They operate. We have reconnaissance satellites and optical and radio frequencies, and other sensors out there. I want to say when this first came about, actually, we had back 20 years ago, there was actually a bolide that came in between India and Pakistan. It hit in the Indian Ocean. If it had come in a little earlier, either Pakistan or India might have thought they got hit with a nuclear first strike and launched. And fortunately, the launch teams now there's information exchanges to prevent that from happening. If you look at the Chelyabinsk incident, they knew it was an impact, or that they had the videos that came in and all that. But before, they wouldn't have known. And if it had come in a different angle without that long trail, what Russia would have thought they got hit by Ukraine or something. Touch off a nuclear war. I don't think that's any good.
Okay, once again, I was talking about NORAD.
Well, when I first started off on this, again, the tracking systems, the Earth-based tracking systems were picking up this stuff. And the data from that wasn't publicly available. The people were quite alarmed that were running those systems. And they finally managed to get it declassified, so we now have that publicly shared.
Okay, so if NORAD already has the capabilities and their system seems to work, I can certainly understand broadening the horizon and using more sophisticated sensor systems.
It doesn't work that way. Actually, what NORAD picks up is generally stuff that's coming in and exploding in the atmosphere, or entering and hitting the Earth. That's what NORAD picks up. It doesn't pick it up early. It doesn't pick up large stuff far enough out there. They don't have systems designed for that. The NORAD is designed for the military function of protecting North America. Not for planetary protection, which is what the goal is here.
But if it's not in place, isn't something better than nothing?
Well, something is better than nothing. Another thing I watched, and I'm thinking this was several years into it, was actually an exchange between Russia and the United States on what their military reconnaissance systems were picking up in terms of upper atmosphere detonations and lower atmosphere detonations. I watched that. I'm thinking that would have been about 2002. I was up at a conference when that first information exchanges came down. It's an ongoing process. Systems are getting better. It's just a question of, can we beat the clock? Can we get the systems up there and working before we're challenged.
Is it possible, Ed, that these systems are already in place but not public knowledge?
No.
Why not?
Well, I would have hit over the years, over 20 years of working on this project, working on asteroid and comet impact, something would have been thrown over the transom my way, and it hasn't been. Somebody would have told me something about what the military systems were picking up. Whether it's colleagues from one of the major observatories or one of the smaller ones, somebody would have said something to me if the DoD could handle this, and they can't.
But that's based on the information that is publicly known, right or wrong?
Well, I am, I just hang with a whole lot of people that specialize in this area. And of course, when I was living in D.C. before I moved to Vicksburg here in Ohio and Illinois, I would be at the bar at the reception, so these people would have chance to talk with me all the time, and they would have given me a heads up beyond what I know to have occurred, in terms of information exchanges.
Sure, but no disrespect, Ed. Why would people give you military information?
Well, I guess I'm trustworthy, Rob. I guess my purity of heart just comes shining through. I'm not sure. They probably trust me enough to. Thinking back on it, I'm thinking back 20 years ago when I was in D.C. hanging around and running the streets there and running from conference to conference and associating with those folks. Thinking back to that point, it's been a number of years for me. I've been well out of the loop I've been out of the loop since 2003.
Okay, so it's
really.
So you've been out of the loop for 20 years. Isn't it possible? Isn't it possible that there have been advances made, there have been projects that have been implemented that you are unaware of?
I'm actually, Rob, somebody would have sent me an email or given me a heads up. Certainly I turned all the journalists that I was hanging with onto this is a story, and they've all made good money with it over the years. And those contacts are still out there. Somebody would send me an email. If there was more than what I tell you about, they would have sent me an email. If not sanitizing for general publication and gotten it out there. It's a fight for money.
All right, so as it stands now, according to you, there is no impact detection system in place to protect the planet Earth, right?
It's not good enough. We have a limited one, but it's not good enough. It can only detect, I think it's 30% of 50-meter objects, and you really have to get all those. And you have to get them early. There's another aspect, which is you have to get it early, so you can at least get people into some kind of shelter or off a coastline to prevent, if you're going to have an ocean impact.
Yeah.
You'll end up with tsunamis coming in and washing away a lot of people. I want to say this. This is another one that gets to me. Actually, there was an impact in the Atlantic Ocean. We now have triggering dates. It was 1195 BC. Thoroughly disrupted the Earth's climate. It interrupted the Gulf Stream and led to widespread death and destruction. And if you just have to get an early warning as possible, and that leaves you some options on preventing the thing from hitting.
In your opinion, what is the likelihood of having an asteroid or comet impact this planet within the next 20 years, based on the data that you are privy to?
Well, from what I can make out from the historical record, we get a fairly sizable impact about once every 100 years, but it doesn't run like, oh, well, we had Chelyabinsk, so nothing else is going to come in.
Mm-hmm.
No, we can have another Chelyabinsk tomorrow. We can have stochastic period. It's the mathematics of it are not. It's not like, well, that one missed us, the next one's going to miss us, or that one hit us then, so the next one's going to miss us. It doesn't work that way. It's like when it comes, and there you are.
Once again, is there any? I find it hard to believe that with all the technology we have, Earth isn't protected, or that there isn't a better way of detecting the impact, the possible impact, the asteroids, and that are called planet killers.
Well, it's a question of Amy Mainzer getting her funding and then getting her sensor together and getting the NeoCam up and getting it launched. The launch costs have dropped so much with SpaceX that that's not the problem. The problem is getting the sensor to work, getting the bus together, and getting it on up into orbit, all the optics and stuff.
But what about the Sentry system, or the CNEOS system? Aren't they up to date? Or how about the Sentry system? As far as I know, the Sentry is a highly automated collision monitoring system that continually scans the most current asteroid catalog for possibilities of future impact.
Yeah. Well, you have, they have the ones they can find, they can track them and look to see if they're going to collide with each other, if they're going to hit, one of them's going to hit with another one and divert it towards the Earth. That's with the existing catalog and existing observations. The problem is to get better observations earlier on.
But if they have this data already, isn't it possible that working with civilian agencies like NASA and the military, since you've been out of the loop for 20 years, that it does already exist?
No, it doesn't. Somebody would have told me.
But what happens if they didn't tell you because you've been out of the loop?
Well, it just wouldn't happen. I run into enough people still, and I get correspondence from folks. So
in your opinion, it's not going to happen because all these people that you knew 20 years ago would still give you the information. Okay. That's your opinion. I would say that over the past 20 years, there have been leaps and bounds in technology. And who knows? NASA and the military and may be working together. Once again, you're not privy to everything because you're not in that loop anymore. Ed, thanks very much for joining us. And X Zone Nation, our guest this hour has been Ed Grondine. Questionable, to say the least. I think that there's a lot of data missing, and I'm still trying to figure out what happened to our conversation about Mars? What happened to the conversation about the impacts that geologists are still investigating and why they're doing that? Why are they wasting their time? I'll be back tomorrow night at 10 o'clock as once again we cross the time-space continuum to this place that I call the X Zone. So from everyone here at Classic 1220, the X Zone, and all our listeners, thank you very much for joining us. And always remember, keep your eyes to the sky and your heart to the light. Good night, everyone.